This is the plaited braid stitch used in hand embroidery. It creates a beautiful double braided line. It's kind of wide and thick. And although we see it a lot in metal threads, you can actually work with any thread that has a little bit of body to it. So I'm working between two parallel lines. I'm using a tapestry needle that has a blunt tip so it doesn't snag on the pearl cotton that I'm using for the demonstration. And I've come up on the right line, the stitch depth below the top of the line. I'm going to take my needle down into the fabric just to the left of center to create a diagonal straight stitch right here. And now I'm going to come up on my design line. Actually, here I came up just inside my design line, but it's easier if you just use your design line as a guide, so come up on the design line. And then go down on the right design line at the top and pull your thread through until you have just a little loop left. Then come up in your fabric just to the right of the top of the diagonal stitch, and you want to pull through just enough to tension up that loop so it sits right on top of the diagonal there. Then go down into the left line below where you started the stitch and come up directly across on the right line. And that's the first movement of the stitch. You can see this loop and the diagonal that crosses over it. We're going to go down into the hole formed there and pass out on the left and pull through. And I like to leave a loop in my working thread so that that hole in the center is still accessible right there. Then I'm coming from behind that loop against the fabric and underneath the first diagonal stitch and the loop and up into the hole, and then tightening up the working thread, pull on it a little bit to tighten up your loop and pull through over the working thread so another loop forms that sits right on top of the two diagonal stitches. Now down in the left line and up in the right, and that ends the second movement of the stitch. We're starting the third movement now, and from this point on everything will just be a repeat. So there's the hole, and you can see over here two little feet sticking down on the left line. I want to pass out on the left above those 2 feet. So into the hole and above the 2 feet on the left. Pull through and leave a loop in your working thread so that you can access the hole from the right. And then here's 1 foot and the second foot. On the right, you want to pass above 2 feet up into the hole. So you're underneath the diagonals there. And pull through over your working thread, tension up the stitch so it sits right on top of these 2 diagonals. So you have 2 little feet sticking down, and then go down into the left line. And everything now is just a repeat. So we'll come up on the right directly across from where we went down, and then into the hole, passing out on the left above the 2 little feet on the line. Leave a loop of the working thread, pass under those coming up from the right into the hole, tighten up the thread, and pull through on the working thread so that you have a loop there sitting on top of the 2 diagonal feet, and then back down to the left. And now up on the right, and then into the hole in the center, coming out above the 2 feet on the left, and then passing from the back on the right into that hole. And you can see it's helpful to keep that hole open. That's why I keep the loop in my working thread. And then tighten up the working thread and pull through over your working thread to create a loop that's going to sit right on top of the 2 diagonal feet sticking down. Now in the demonstration here, I've worked the plaited braid very loosely so that you can see the movement of the stitch. You can tighten up the whole look of the stitch by working between 2 parallel lines that are a little closer than this. They're closer together, so the stitch is a lot tighter. Or you can use a heavier thread to fill up the stitch more. And you can play with the tension of your stitch too to create a much thicker stitch. And that takes a little bit of practice, so you need to try the stitch with different threads and different thicknesses of your line. But once you get the movement of the stitch down, it actually works up very quickly. So it's a fun stitch, it's a nice thick stitch, and it's very beautiful. So tighten up the thread there, pull through over your working thread, and when you come to the end, you're just going to anchor it by going down in the middle of your line over your last loop. And that's the plaited braid stitch. For more tips and techniques on hand embroidery, stop by and visit me at Needle and Thread.